Still the same will of God. Now, let's go to page 5 and open your Bibles up to these verses. And Wendy, I'll let you take the first one. You tell me what kind of law is found in Exodus 20, verse 3. Was it moral, civil, or ceremonial? Yeah, read that out loud. Exodus 20, verse 3, and tell me what kind of law it is.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Is that a moral law, a civil law, or ceremonial law? Well, let me tell you some of the qualifications for this. A civil law is for the judges in Israel only. Civil law tells them how to rule the country, what punishments to mete out for what crimes. So you say it's not a civil law because it's not confined to the government of Israel. So is it a moral law or a ceremonial law? That's all you got to go to now.
I think it's ceremonial.
You think it's ceremonial. Who else thinks it's ceremonial? Glenn, you think it's ceremonial? Come on, Darren. You look like you're in pain. You think it's ceremonial? Don't whisper. Be bold.
I think it's ceremonial.
Elijah thought it was ceremonial. What about you, Josiah? I feel like I'm pulling teeth here. Who thinks it's ceremonial? Wow, look at all these hands. How can so many of you be so wrong? What kind of job am I doing here? Now, Wendell, why did you not agree with your daughter and give her some support on this ceremonial thing? It doesn't have anything to do with Israel's worship at all. It's not a part of the tabernacle service. Did you think it was ceremonial? You got guilt written all over you.
Sounded good.
Let's see if we can improve our track record and go to chapter 20, verse 12. All right, James, Exodus 20, verse 12. Is that moral, civil, or ceremonial?
That's moral.
Well, read it and see.
Honor thy father and thy mother, and
Okay.
thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth.
Okay, and you say that's ceremonial too?
No, I said it's moral.
That's right. That's just a plain old moral commandment. We've already read it. That's pretty good, James. See how you do in verse 13.
Thou shalt not kill. That's moral.
That's another moral commandment. Has nothing to do with the worship of Israel. Has nothing to do with the judges. Now the judges will be told if somebody breaks that commandment, this is what you do. That's just a moral commandment. What about chapter 21, verse 12? All right, Julie, 21:12. What do you say? No, this one. What'd you say?
That is
Read it again.
moral.
Read it again.
He that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death.
You say that's moral.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm not going to talk you out of it?
I don't know.
What about you, Julie number 1? You say moral? You go along with that then, right? Both Julies say moral. Julie, you pretty sure about that? You confident in your answer?
Well, thou shalt not kill was moral.
Cliff, you going to support your wife?
I don't know, it could be silly too.
You sound wishy-washy. Your wife sounds confident.
I say silly
You say civil. Why do you say civil?
because after he kills the man and the judge put him to death, that's the judgment for the killing.
It's a civil commandment. It's not saying thou shalt not kill. It's saying what to do in case somebody does kill. You see the difference?
Yes.
Earl, you catching on here?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Get clearer.
Well, we'll keep pressing right along and see how well we do. 21 verse 1. Diane, read that and tell us what kind of law it is. Oh, I'm sorry, 22 verse 1. I'm sorry.
If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
What kind of law is that? Is it a moral law, a civil law, or a ceremonial law?
Civil.
A civil law? Are you sure? I couldn't change your mind no matter what I say. That's good. Yeah. Of course, it's the punishment for a crime. It's a civil law. All right, Amanda. What's the next one here? Did we do 21:17? Did we do that one? Do 21:17, Amanda. Read that.
And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death.
Civil.
What do you say, Aaron?
Civil.
Why?
Because he has to be taken to the judges.
That's a commandment for the judges. What to do with the guy that curses his father and mother. Isn't that right, Aaron? That's what you were trying to say, wasn't it?
Right.
Right. All right, Kathy. Did we do chapter 20, verse 15? All right, let's do that one. 20:15, Kathy. Read it out loud and tell us what kind of law it is.
Thou shalt not steal.
What kind of law is that?
That's going to be
One of them things.
yeah.
Whose son was Ham? That's right. That guy.
No,
That's right.
no.
Now, tell me what kind of law this is.
Is it,
No, don't ask me. Tell me.
thou shalt not steal?
Yeah.
That would be
Yes, it's a moral law. Very good. Very good, I think. All right, James Randall, chapter 22, verse 20. Tell me what kind of law that is. Read it out loud.
He that sacrificeth unto any god save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed.
22:20. What kind of law? He said civil, Debbie. Did you hear what James Randall said? What do you say?
I think it's moral.
You think it's moral? Why? Because you just think James Randall's wrong?
I don't think it's civil because I don't think it's the judges.
You don't? What does it say? What does it say? I don't remember.
He that sacrificeth unto any god save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed.
Now ask her a question. Yeah, ask her a question.
Who's going to destroy?
It's a civil commandment. It tells us what to do with somebody who breaks a moral commandment. All right, Rebecca. Chapter 23, 14 and 15.
3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I command thee, in the time appointed of the month of these. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me.
What kind of law is that?
Ceremony.
You asking or telling?
Telling.
You're telling? It didn't sound like telling. It sounded like a question. Ceremonial. Marlena, you agree with that? Now, you know that Rebecca missed last class.
Yeah.
What? Did you say yes? Why do you say that? You don't know. I'm heartbroken. Kathy, tell Marlena why she said yes.
But she knows it's ceremony.
Because you know it's ceremonial. Stand up for yourself. Why is it ceremonial? Oh, where are we? We're in Exodus.
It's talking about the unleavened bread, and it's you're going to be doing this.
Does that make it ceremonial just because God's talking about unleavened bread and you're going to be doing something? That's a feast. Any of the feast days are ceremonial. Any holy day, anything like that, ceremonial. Any special time that's appointed by God. All right. Good, Marlena. Good girl. All right, Ellen. 25, verse 31 in Exodus.
Make a candlestick of pure gold of beaten work shall the candlestick be made.
Shall make a candlestick of pure gold of beaten work shall the candlestick be made. What kind of commandment is that?
That's ceremonial.
Has to be. Anything that has to do with the tabernacle is ceremonial. All right, Betty Lou. 28:36. What kind of law is it?
And thou shalt make a plate of pure gold and grave upon it like the engravings of a signet holiness to the Lord. Ceremonial.
Ceremonial. Has to do with the tabernacle. All right, Tim, the last one. Chapter 30, verse 25.
And thou shalt make it an oil of holy ointment and ointment compounded after the art of the
Apothecary's art.
It shall be an holy anointed oil.
Holy anointing oil to anoint the priest with. That's ceremonial, of course. Has to do with the worship of Israel, the tabernacle. Now we take the next two questions right below there. Darren, you ready? Was the commandment to keep the Sabbath day a ceremonial or a moral law?
Be ceremonial.
Leanne, did you hear that?
That's where my figure is. That's what I think too.
You think ceremonial? Why?
Has to do with keeping a ceremony.
I told you the Sabbath day was never a day of worship, it was a day of rest. Now, didn't I tell you that? Then what does this have to do with worship? Do you feel picked on?
No.
Good. What does this have to do with worship? The Sabbath day. Ellen, do you like to see your mother under such pressure? You do? What do you say, Jim? Help them out.
I think it's moral.
You think it's moral? We got a brave man. Tell Darren why you think it's moral.
Well, God commanded it.
God commanded all these things. So do your next reason.
Well, I think because he did command it, it's something that is moral.
Well, he commanded the ceremonial.
Just feels right.
It's just the way it feels, Darren. It just feels moral. What do you say, Leah? Brother Jim and Brother Darren do not have fellowship on this point. And we're trying to fix that. You have got to help them. Is there not a wise man among you, one able to judge among the brethren? Brother Darren, why do you think it was ceremonial?
It's not telling people how to live, how to act, how to treat each other.
Brother Darren says it's a moral commandment because it's not telling people how to treat each other, how to act. Brother Jim says it's a moral commandment because it just feels like one. Now, it's up to you to decide among the brethren. You're going to go with your feelings, or you're going to go with an explanation, or something else. Is it civil?
Well, my first instinct was that it was ceremonial.
Your first instinct was ceremonial. But then, you had these feelings.
I really didn't have those feelings.
Oh, you didn't? But you said your first instinct was ceremonial, and then That implies a second instinct. If you speak of a first, there's got to be a second.
I don't have second instincts. It's just it's just like I still think it's ceremonial.
So when you started going into the second instinct, you said, no, I don't have second instinct. Yeah. Carol? She's going to go along with her father. You know how prejudiced she is. You're not related to either Darren or Jim. You're free. You're going to go with Jim's feelings? You got a convert, Jim?
I'm starting to change my mind.
Oh. Drag her out into the desert and abandon her. Oh, this is horrible. Poor Carol. You've been led astray. What do you say, Debbie? I don't want to hear from you. I know what you're going to say. What do you say? You say? I thought she was going to say ceremonial. You said moral? Well, Jim. Maybe you can win Jim over to your cause. Tell Jim why you think it's moral. Win him back to the fold. Help him.
Well, like a matter of the heart than a ceremonial thing.
Seems more a matter of the heart than a ceremonial thing. So it really wasn't a matter of the heart about offering a sacrifice in the morning. Heart has nothing to do with that, right?
That was something spelled out. A sacrifice was, that was ceremonial.
How?
Well, because it was connected to the tabernacle and
Worship.
worship. All that was ceremonial.
Feast days weren't a matter of the heart because that was all spelled out, right? Forget the heart thing. Okay, forget the heart thing. Boy. Jim, you've left the desert?
The first 6 days were all ceremonial. The Sabbath would be.
The first 6 days were all ceremonial?
I'm eating bread, unleavened bread. I'm digging myself a hole.
You're talking about the Passover. Well, Passover definitely ceremonial. Bess, you say moral. Jim, you've won a lot of hearts here, and you're going to leave them? They're all looking to you. What do you say, Josiah? You say moral. Bob?
Moral.
Moral? Lou?
Moral. I was thinking because it's a matter of choice.
Choice. God said do it. Well, God said make a sacrifice. What if you choose not to? Does that make it moral? Suppose some of them didn't want to rest? Suppose some of them didn't want to sacrifice a lamb. Does that make that moral? Why?
Well, I was kind of looking at the tides. No,
Don't get ahead of us. This is bad enough.
like it was a matter.
Explain this to her.
It's wrong because it's not any worship. It's not worship.
Is that what you say? Boy, I am surprised. What do you say, Jim? You say moral. Doris? Jim, you going back to the moral?
I'm swinging back.
Now you know that God said. You're getting dizzy, Jim. You know the Lord said, "Do not follow after a multitude to do evil."
Yeah.
You gotta know what you're doing around here. Stacy. You say moral. Why? Because you've heard it so often? Well, why? You got to have a reason. Well, everything with the tabernacle is ceremonial, but I wouldn't say that only everything with the tabernacle. It's like all grass is green, but not all that's green is grass. Sarah? Moral? Doris?
Well, the part that's throwing me is that when saying ceremonial, like the 10 Commandments, that was part of the law.
All of this is part of the law, honey. That's what we're studying. Yeah, ceremony is a ceremony. Now you got something there. Kind of narrowing it right on down there. You say moral. Now, Leanne, I forgot what you said. What'd you say?
I said ceremonial. Well,
Oh, she's starting to get dizzy, Jim.
No, I'm not. No, I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't have anything to do with how you're treating each other.
Well, that's what Darren said.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't even hear him say that. That's what I thought. So I'm doing a process of elimination, I guess.
What do you say, Al?
I'll say moral, because I think it's continuing.
Ceremonial is continuing.
Not also.
Oh, this is hard. Token.
Ceremonial. I'm sure.
Why do you think it's ceremonial? Help Darren and this poor lady in the back out. They're desperate. I mean, the crowd's growing. That moral denomination's growing.
Because we don't do it anymore except in spirit only, and that's what ceremonial.
You hear that, Al? What do you think? Good argument. What do you think, Rob?
Well, I've been sitting beside her for the last 15 minutes.
Oh, never mind.
So I'm going with moral.
You're going with moral. What'd you do to him the last
15 minutes? Because it says in 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy.
That settles that issue. God said it, so it's got to be moral.
That's a moral.
Well, God gave all the other commandments, and some of them were civil, and some of them are ceremonial. So why does the fact that God said it make it moral?
Well, 2012, he said, honor thy father and mother. That's moral.
You never took a logic course in college, did you?
You did the right thing, not to improve it.
Well, how does verse 12...
What's in the same chapter?
This is not working. What do you say, Taylor?
Moral.
Moral? Why?
Disagree with Token. We do still keep the Sabbath.
Well, she says we still do, but in
I thought
spirit.
you said we did.
No, in spirit.
Oh, okay. But you said it's ceremonial?
Yes.
Why?
Because we keep the Sabbath in spirit only. Not, we don't really keep it, we don't have to.
And Al said that was a good argument.
She's in the lower right quadrant on the board.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I would have considered the old. Well, yeah.
Yeah, you got to consider the Old Testament.
Well,
but look, the question says was. It doesn't say is.
Well, that's the question. Was the Old Testament Sabbath a ceremony? That's the issue.
Right. I don't think it was.
You don't think it was? Ceremonial law, anyway. Sister Willie. We don't have but 3 people in this whole room think it's ceremony unless I'm missing some folks. And I'm intentionally missing some folks because I think they're going to say ceremonial and I don't want to hear it. Of course, 3 people have already disappointed me that I thought we were going to say ceremonial when they said moral. So what do you say?
I'm kind of almost middle of the road.
Oh, you're in civil. That's the middle.
If you don't get it,
That's in the middle of the road.
you don't keep it, you kill it. I think it's more because it was given in the same text. It was given, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill.
Same chapter, right, Rob? Okay. I'm going to start calling out my big guns here. Well, I've already asked you, hadn't I? What do you think, Earl? Well, I don't know. I'm afraid to ask. Well, what do you say? Oh, don't ask me. I'm not a big gun. I'll let Patsy go in front of you. Okay, Patsy, what do you say? How many years has it been since I taught this? What do you say? You say ceremony. You go along with Token and Darren and Leanne. Oh, Jim. Boy, Jim, you got to be dizzy by now.
Can I say why I said
Yes, please do.
the way I feel? If you disobey a moral commandment, that's sin. And working on Sabbath isn't sin.
Jim, you'll never be the same.
Sometimes you have to work on the Sabbath. Sometimes you just have to. And it's not sin. If you break a moral commandment, that's sin.
But if you break the ceremony.
But it's in the same chapter as thou shalt not steal.
It is, but Jesus did stuff on the Sabbath day. And he didn't sin.
But just a few verses down, it says, honor your father and your mother, and that's moral. Isn't that right, Rob?
Amen.
But Jesus honored his father and mother, and he also did stuff on the Sabbath. And I'm going along with Jesus.
You went with Jesus and Darren and Leanne and Token.
Exactly.
All right, Barbara.
Well, I think it's moral. I think it's moral because
She feels it, Jim.
I just don't know how to put it into words.
All right, Wendell.
Come out and
It's
talk.
sorry, please.
Go ahead, Wendell.
It's a moral law because the commandment was given just to keep men from abusing.
In other words, the reason for the commandment was to keep men from abusing one another?
Trying to keep them from working each other.
Now, Jim, does that swing you back in another direction there? He says commandment to keep people from hurting people.
Can I ask you a question? May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you vote?
No. I am surprised. Sheila.
Well, I'm real confused. I don't think I thought it was moral.
Well, it's in the same chapter. There's a lot of moral
And that's
commandments.
exactly what I was going to tell you if you asked me. It was, thou shalt have no other gods before me, and honor thy father and thy mother. And I thought if that's more than keeping Sabbath.
So that means don't make any graven images is moral.
I really just don't know.
Tell her, Sammy.
I thought it was moral because it didn't pertain to worship. It was given as a day of rest.
I think I know how to explain how I feel now. I think it's moral because we still need it now physically. We don't only need it now spiritually. We still need it now physically.
That's not the issue. The issue is it still the will of God?
Yes.
You say it is.
Yeah.
To keep the Sabbath day.
Well, it doesn't have to be on Sunday, though.
But it never was on Sunday. Sabbath day is
It
Saturday.
doesn't have to be on the same day every week.
It does if it's got a commandment of God. He decides which day is the Sabbath day. You don't. You can't say, I'm tired on Tuesday. I think this is a Sabbath day. It is necessary to rest. That doesn't have a thing to do with Sabbath day. That's just getting tired. Patsy. You say moral? Ellen?
I think during the law it was a very particular day. I think you still need it. You have to have it.
You have to have the Sabbath day
Yes. And I do.
every afternoon?
I think it's a sin not to keep the Sabbath day. I think it's a necessary thing to have it.
So if you work on Saturday, you're a transgressor.
But I don't do it on Saturday. I have to keep the Sabbath day.
Whenever you can. When you get to it, I'll keep your Sabbath day. Just give me a break.
I'll get 2 next week.
It's ceremonial to me.
You just said moral.
No, I didn't. I said ceremonial.
You said moral.
No, it's ceremonial. It's definite. I think you have to keep it.
Well, you have to keep moral laws.
No, it's
You don't have to keep moral laws?
I know what it is. I think you have to keep the ceremonial law.
Well, you have to keep the moral law today.
Yes, you do have to keep
So which one is it?
It's ceremonial.
Why? Because you got to keep it today. Well, you got to keep moral today. Well,
Because it's changed. It's a changed way you keep it.
that's what Token said.
It's changed the way you keep it. You have to keep it, but it's changed.
Anybody else what do you say, John?
Well, I would say it's a ceremony of the heart.
That's what Token said. Basically. You go along with that?
Yeah. He says keep it holy.
He said keep it holy. Well, the whole thing was, the law was holy. So he's saying it's morally holy or ceremonially holy? Morally. Oh, you disagree with your husband. Did you say moral or ceremonial?
I say it's a ceremony of the heart to honor God.
Is that make it moral or ceremonial law? So you do disagree with your husband. This is hard work. Tim, have I asked you yet? Well, go right ahead. What do you say, Jeremiah?
Ceremonial?
What do you say, Tim? Make up your own mind. Don't listen to him.
I would say ceremonial.
Why?
I had a good argument to listen to him.
You're confused? How could you be confused with all this help? Are you just now beginning to think about it? You got a lot of different opinions too. Well, what do you think, Donna? Where'd Donna go? I was on my way to talk to her and she's gone. Oh, I thought she saw me coming. What do you say, Donna?
Ceremonial.
Donna says ceremonial and she means it. What makes it ceremonial? Tell everybody.
Well, I can give a clue first.
Are you trying to... Go ahead. She's going to give you a clue.
February 20th. When you prayed for me, there was a rest that came, and it wasn't a Saturday. There was a rest, very deep.
What does that have to do with God saying thou shalt keep the Sabbath day?
It's spiritual.
So you think he's changed it into spiritual, and that makes it ceremonial. What do you think, RJ?
I think it is moral.
Why?
I agree with Wendell. I think initially it was a mode of conduct on how you treat other people, to your servants and your cattle, that you give them a day of rest. So it's the way that you treat other people should be a moral conduct.
But it's a certain day. Amy, have I asked you anything yet? But now, if it is a moral commandment, then you only have to treat people that way once a week, because it was a specified time. So you think it's moral? So once a week you're going to treat people right. Well, tell me why you think it's moral.
I think it's moral because it's not a day of
Because it doesn't have anything to do with the worship.
Are we supposed to treat every day as if it's the Sabbath today?
Oh, not according to RJ.
So it is ceremonial because we are to live every day as it's the Sabbath. So it's every day.
What, Rob?
I said it's moral because you keep the Sabbath every day. Just like you can have communion every day.
That wasn't the commandment of God that he gave to Israel. God gave the commandment to Israel to keep the Sabbath day once a week. Is that commandment ceremonial or moral?
You told us before that the Sabbath didn't have anything to do with religion. It had to do with rest.
Didn't have anything to do with religion.
Yeah, I mean, not have anything to do with religious ceremony. It had to do with rest.
I didn't say that. I said it didn't have anything to do with the worship.
A day of worship.
It wasn't a day of
A
worship.
day of rest.
There were some Sabbaths that were days of worship, that like Yom Kippur and those kind of things. But the weekly Sabbath was not a day of worship. Sandy, if I ask you, you and Betty tell me now. What do you say?
Well, it sounds like you're leaning towards ceremony.
All right, how do I sound now?
However, what I think it's moral because I know what you just said, and that stuff right here about the one day a week, and we're not locked into that because the Lord said keep the Sabbath day because it's holy.
Actually, there were about 59 Sabbath days in a year. One every week, and then there were about 6 or 7 more added in there.
Took all that and put it on the inside. Therefore, I can rest any day of the week I want to.
Oh, and when you get off work.
But I can rest in the Lord any time that I want to.
So what is it?
Well, that's not a ceremony to me because ceremonies are a lot of work. And the Lord says it's a day of rest. How could it be ceremonial? I mean, that's a lot of work to do all this ceremony.
You following this, Al?
Sacrifice and all that kind of stuff, that's a lot of work. So I just figure I can rest anytime I want to.
Wait, Betty, you got to have a chance here.
Moral.
You say moral too? Why?
Because
I hope it's not for the same reason she said.
No, for the Old Testament, if it's just for the Old Testament. I mean, the Old is to give them a rest, so it's a moral
The
commandment.
moral, let me go over this again. Moral, yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So you said it's just for the Old Testament, so therefore it's moral.
No, just
I don't get that. Go ahead.
It confuses me about what you're talking about just for Old Testament, or can it go through all the way to the New Testament? Is it, the one of the commandments you're talking about goes from the Old all the way through to the New? It would be ceremonial now. The Sabbath, you keep the Sabbath spiritually. But it's moral now. No, but it could be both.
I'll come back to y'all later.
I was going to say ceremonial. Somebody said it was a day of rest back then. They didn't have to do anything. I thought maybe it was more. My first choice was ceremony.
I understand.
I don't know.
That's all right. Shake it off. What do you say, Bob?
I'd like to change to ceremony.
Jim, are you still hanging around the...
I think
Yeah.
It did specify a particular day to how to conduct one, and that is intertangled in with how to worship.
Not according to Marbury. Whenever you get tired, take a Sabbath.
Now, it is in spirit only, and it's not confined to a day, but the commandment was for observe the Sabbath day, not...
What about the Sabbath year?
It is
a whole year.
It is in spirit only. So if you look at the chart here, it's the only one that we've got that says in spirit only.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yes.
How can it be ceremonial when it was never ceremonial to begin with?
I just think you should have been a lawyer.
Lord, shall you keep bullets.
Well, that's the question. Was it ceremonial to begin with? That's your answer. You got any thoughts on this, Chris? What thoughts do you have?
Kind of what you really think.
All the people that say ceremonial have really good answers in their eyes.
Are you hearing Chris? Chris said, all the people who say ceremonial have good answers in their eyes. So are you going along with the eyes? The eyes have it.
That's the good thing I've heard yet.
Man. Sarah, have I asked you anything? You said moral. Oh, I asked you yet? You said moral? That's your first answer? Last answer?
Day of rest, not a day of worship.
Well, I know that.
Worship, and you basically have to do some work. And God deals with labor. It's ceremonial works. Old Testament.
Yeah?
So I say it's more.
Jesus said he didn't come to do away with them. Came to fulfill them.
Well, but he did away with the day of works.
Fulfilled them. Caroline, way in the back. What do you say? Well, let me come back there so I can hear you, and then I'll translate. What?
I was thinking ceremonial.
Caroline says ceremonial. How many people have said ceremonial? Jim, you can't raise your hand no matter what you think.
I changed my mind. I just figured it out.
Hold on. Oh, excuse me. Wait a minute. Let me get over here so now I can hear you. You changed your mind?
I changed the ceremonial.
And you changed yours to moral.
Because this is, was the commandment to keep the Sabbath day a ceremonial moral law. We're talking about back then, right?
You didn't say anything to her, Betty? Okay. All right, Barbara, what's your question?
Okay, my question is, when in the Bible was the Sabbath day first implemented?
In Genesis chapter 2.
There's your answer.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's see.
What is it? Moral? All right. Now, why does Genesis chapter 2 make it moral?
Because it wasn't implemented with any part of the ceremonial law.
All right, let me ask you this. When was circumcision implemented? Genesis chapter 17. Wasn't implemented with anything to do with the ceremonial laws of Israel. Was that a ceremony, or was circumcision a ceremony?
Yes, it was a ceremony. It was part of the worship towards God. The Sabbath day was not
Circumcision wasn't an act of worship. Circumcision wasn't anything to do with worship.
Well, it says next to remember it.
It qualifies you for it.
Right.
What?
Well, it says in Exodus 20, to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
So if it has to do with memory, it makes it...
When he takes them back to Genesis, it says, remember what I said in Genesis, I'm saying in Exodus.
That's a pretty good point for what you said there. Tell her.
He says in Exodus 20, and that's right along with the 10
Read it again. She missed it.
It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor.
He don't need to read the rest of it.
He's repeating himself, but yet he's still doing it in the context of the law, the 10 Commandments and the law.
Same way he could say, remember circumcision. Is that what you're saying? Say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's right.
You're just bringing it under the law. That's all. Who else? Does it not have... Huh? Aaron.
I think it's ceremonial.
Why? Why do you think this?
I think because it's something God said to keep. I just think it's ceremonial.
Okay, you can just think that. That's fine. Glenn, I haven't asked you yet either, have I?
No, I was hoping you wouldn't. Be honest about it.
I put off you and a few other people. I thought maybe I put you off because I had so much confidence you would know the answer just like that.
Well, I have to go with the moral because it has nothing to do with the worship, how you worship or what God said about worship.
Didn't ask Jimmy either.
Who?
Jimmy and Cliff.
Well, I thought sure. Cliff, I've already talked to him, hadn't I? Was it a different? I'm getting mixed up earlier questions. No. What do you say, Cliff? You say more? That what you said? I didn't. I waited to the last to ask some people because I felt sure they would know. I'm amazed. I waited last to ask Lynn because I thought for sure she would remember. Lynn, tell them what the answer is.
I think it's ceremonial.
Oh no.
At first, I really was convinced it was moral.
Well, let's. What is the next question, Jim? Read it out loud.
Commandment concerning tithes and offerings is ceremonial or moral law?
Yeah. What do you say?
It's ceremonial.
You say it's ceremonial. I don't know, Wendell. No, hold on a second here. Are you feeling dizzy again, Jim?
I don't know. It is moral because it's still something that we do in the flesh.
But why? Why are you still doing it in the flesh instead of just spiritual? What makes it a moral law or ceremonial or whatever, wherever you are right now? I forgot. What is it about that commandment that makes it whatever it is?
Because it was a law that Jesus didn't change from fleshly to spirit.
Well, that's begging the question, though. Did he change it? And we just missed it. What is it about the law that makes it whatever it is? We know what we know.
We did know what we knew.
We know that the Sabbath day is a ceremonial law because it's a specific day that no longer we have to obey and keep the way they did in the Old Testament. We can work on it just like James said way back in the beginning. That was one of the best answers I ever heard. If it's a moral commandment, James said, to keep the Sabbath day, then you're sinning if you do any work on Saturday. I thought that would convince everybody, and I think, whew, that was a great answer. Great answer. That's why I didn't even ask Lynn, because I figured, boy, she's taught him well. Just kidding. Best answer. James, I mean, if it's a moral law, then you can't work on that day. You can't paint, you can't saw lumber, you can't dig stumps, can't do anything.
Cook or nothing like that.
Nothing.
Wash clothes, nothing.
Couldn't cook. It was forbidden to cook in the wilderness on the Sabbath day because it had to be sanctified to the Lord. Now, instead of sanctifying things, he sanctifies people, and whatever you do can be holy because it's the will of God. Now, as far as the tithes and offerings, what do you say, Bess? What is it about the commandment for tithes and offerings that makes it whatever it is? What is it? Jim says it is a ceremonial law and or moral law. No, what'd you say?
Moral.
He says moral. What do you say, Bess? You're confused?
I need to let my brain take in the definition of ceremonial and moral. I just need to
What is the definition of ceremonial?
set the time to the tabernacle and days that are set apart by God.
Days and times, like years.
And moral law is things that are issues of our heart.
Well, I'd say how to live, how to conduct yourself with people.
And
God.
moral laws stay the same all the way.
Right. No changes.
So it ties on to the moral.
Why has it not changed if it hasn't? What is it about it that makes it a moral law, if you think that's what it is? What moral commandment? This is the key to it. What moral commandment do you break if you don't bring tithes and offerings to God? This is for Bess. Yeah. They're all connected. Debbie? You think it's moral too? Why? Just because we pay tithes and offerings around here? Well, all of this ought to be in our heart. Even the no on the civil, we ought to have it in our heart to be thankful for whatever government's out there. Being a matter of the heart is irrelevant. It's all a matter of the heart. What, Glenn?
We're robbing God.
Who says we're robbing God?
We are if you're not paying.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying, how do you know you're robbing God if you don't pay tithes and offerings? You're saying we're robbing God. I ask you why, and you say, I know we're robbing God. Huh?
In Malachi.
Now we're getting somewhere. What does it say in Malachi? Find it and read it to us.
Okay.
Malachi chapter 3, I think it is.
I remember that.
What verse?
Let's see.
What verse, Glenn?
Right here, verse 10. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be.
I think you need to start at verse 8.
Okay. Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have ye robbed thee? In tithes and offerings.
So if you don't pay and bring tithes and offerings, you're a thief and a robber. Thief. What?
This whole nation, you are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation.
Yeah, all God's people drifted away from understanding that you always have enough money to bring tithes and offerings to God. Now, what do you got to say, Jimmy?
This one in Hebrews, one I like it.
Hebrews
7 and 8.
Chapter 7, verse 8.
And here men that died received tithes, but there he receiveth him, a thing in his witness that he liveth.
Right.
So you can't really spiritualize it, but here men, he's anointed men as you to receive them, and whenever they do, then he puts that down on your record as him.
Him receiving them. Here men that die receive tithes, but there he receives them. I can't, and I went through all this years ago. I cannot find a way to make tithes and offerings a ceremonial law. I can't do it.
Abraham did something on the border law.
Yeah. Well, Abraham circumcised before the law too. That's a ceremonial law.
And how did Abraham know to do it?
How did Abraham know to do tithes and offerings? I don't know.
You know, God told him about the circumcision.
Yeah. God gave him that commandment. I don't know how he knew. It must have been something in the heart.
Must have been.
The law was added.
What's that?
The law was added because of transgression, because they got away from thinking like
Yeah, the law was added so that people would know what was right and wrong.
Abraham and them. I think they got a heart to know that.
Joseph?
And along the way, it just kind of drifted way off track, and it got so bad that God had to.
Right. God had to write it down for the people who didn't want to obey it. So, now we come to an extremely important point. Then we may be finished for this time. And that's this right here. And we'll see how this works into your thinking on Sabbath day. Paul said our salvation is no longer dependent upon works of the law, right? This is his phrase. Works of the law. And every time Paul said salvation is not of works, he said works of the law, except for one in Ephesians chapter 2, and Christian ministers have made a heyday of that to tell people that nothing you do counts. You don't have to obey the moral laws anymore. You don't have to do the will of God anymore. That's not what Paul meant, and the Ephesians understood that. They were under pressure by Jewish believers to say they still had to continue in the Sabbath days, and they still had to continue with the circumcision in the flesh, and all of that, all those other things in the flesh. That's works of the law. These things right here. This is works of the law, not that. Ceremonial rituals are works of the law, and they have nothing to do with whether you're going to be saved or lost anymore. What? Feast days, whatever. Holy days, all of it. Works of the law. So that now he's teaching, that's his gospel to the Gentiles. It doesn't matter with God if you've been circumcised in the flesh or not. It doesn't matter with God if you work on Saturdays. It doesn't matter with God if you offer animal sacrifices. Except He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it anymore. But none of those things contribute to your salvation. It doesn't matter to God whether your physical body has been dunked under a physical body of water. It's irrelevant. It means nothing. That's a ceremony. A ceremony God gave to Israel through John the Baptist to introduce their Messiah to them. Not to introduce Christ to you Gentiles, but to the Jews. That was a work of the law. See if I can think of the Passover, same thing. Christ has become our Passover. He made it spiritual. These are the four things that make something a work of the law. See if I can remember it. It has to be given from God. Men cannot invent a work of the law and have anything to do with what Paul was talking about. Has to be from God for men to do or make. And all four of these are in the book Spiritual Light, on the chapter on salvation and works. It has to have been in effect during the law, of course. During the time of the law. Time of the law. Has to be, when I say the word ceremonial, don't narrow your mind down to just a ceremony. Think about physical. I'm going to put ceremonial in nature. There's another one too. It represented a spiritual reality fulfilled in Christ, of course. If it's missing any of these things, it's not a work of the law. Has to be from God for us to do or make. Had to be in effect during the law. It could have been started before the law, like circumcision or Sabbath day or anything else. Had to be kind of ceremonial in nature. That's physical, in the flesh, a specific time, a specific place to do whatever God said do. And it had to represent a spiritual reality that we have now in Christ. And you see, the Sabbath day was given from God for us to do during the time of the law. Ceremonial nature means it's in the flesh instead of in the spirit. It represented a spiritual reality, which is life in the spirit, is what it represents. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavily laden, and I will give you rest." That's the Sabbath.